Let me thank you, members of the press, for appearing. I too often have to say to you, thank you for appearing on short notice, but I must express my thanks, and indeed it is short notice. Friends, to all who are within the sound of my voice, all who are viewing this statement that I'm about to make, I want it to be made perfectly clear that the Supreme Court of the United States of America has made it easy and quite possible for invidious discrimination to take place when redistricting is done. To be more specific, they have allowed now a system to develop wherein the parties who are drafting the lines, who are gerrymandering, to do so with racial designs and yet have the Supreme Court approve what they've done. Let's now walk through what has happened. The President of the United States of America is the person who initiated this whole process. The President desired new maps in Texas, midterm redistricting to take place. And he wanted 5 additional seats. He so much as said so. He had his Justice Department contact the state of Texas, contact the governor, contact the Attorney General, and indicated that these seats should be received from the state of Texas, placed into the hands of Republicans, such that Republicans in the House of Representatives would have 5 additional seats, such that they would be able to maintain the majority in the House of Representatives. This is all about maintaining the majority in the House of Representatives. And in so doing, the President introduced race into the entire dialogue that has taken place. The President indicated that by and through his Justice Department, that the lines in Texas had been drawn with race in mind. Texas, of course, denied this. But after denying it, Texas went on to draft lines that in fact did include race as a part of the design. They were racially designed lines. Racially designed lines. In fact, Judge Brown, one of the judges in the 3-judge panel that indicated that this was done with racial design, here's what he said. He said, "The governor explicitly directed the legislature to draw a new U.S. House map to resolve DOJ's concerns. The Department of Justice issued these concerns to the governor and to the Attorney General for the state of Texas." But here's what the judge says afterwards. This is Judge Brown. He said, "In other words, the governor explicitly directed the legislature to redistrict based on race." This is what Judge Brown, a conservative jurist who is very well respected, indicated. Well, these judges, 2 of the 3 in Texas in this 3-judge panel, ruled that this was the case, that these lines should not be honored. In fact, that we should have the lines that were in place before the 25 redistricting took place. After this was done, after they issued their opinion, Judge Alito put a stay in place on that opinion. The entire Supreme Court has now weighed in. 3 judges dissenting, but the court ruling that the 25-25 lines should be the lines that we would go forward with in the upcoming election. In doing this, they indicated that the state of Texas should be given a presumption of good faith, legislative good faith. Friends, this is the state of Texas that had the Supreme Court rule and tell it that you can't have white primaries. And after the Supreme Court told Texas you can't have white primaries, Texas went on to have white pre-primaries. And the Supreme Court had to say to Texas, you can't have white pre-primaries if you can't have white primaries. This is the state of Texas that has been before the courts consistently for its racial gerrymandering. For the court to assume without some degree of greater evidence that the state of Texas was acting in good faith is beyond comprehension. But the court has done so. I want people to know that what the court has done in making it much easier for racial gerrymandering to take place without the parties who are being harmed having the ability to prove it, started with the President of the United States. That is where it started. We are now here today because they have honored the President's request to gerrymander. And it is no surprise to anyone, I'm sure, that the district that I represent would be one of the districts that was gerrymandered, such that that district has been moved all the way over to Liberty County, that only a very small percentage of what was the 9th Congressional District is in it. No surprise to people that I now find myself in the 18th Congressional District, along with hundreds of thousands of the people that I've been representing. This should be something that we understand, because we understand what the President's goal is. One of which is to have me not serve in the Congress of the United States of America. Well, the President's not going to run me out of office. That won't happen. I am going to be on the ballot. I will be running from the 18th Congressional District because that's where my home is. That's where my constituents that I've been representing for many years are. It is also a place that, quite frankly, I have found to be a district that can work with, and people that I can be faithful to, that have been faithful to me in terms of helping me get things done in Congress. So I'll be running from the 18th Congressional District. And the best evidence of this is I have filed to run from the 18th Congressional District. I filed on day one. I was the first person to file, indicating that I would run from the 18th Congressional District. I emphasize this to the extent that I do because there are people who are still indicating to the public by way of various news sources that I'm trying to make up my mind. They're indicating that I have to make a decision now. The decision was made when the filing opened. I am in the 18th Congressional District. I didn't move to the 18th. The 18th moved to me. So I will be running on the ballot for the March primary of next year from the 18th Congressional District. It is important to note this, that with this ruling from the Supreme Court, we are in a position now where you will almost have to have a confession. You will almost have to have a confession from the people who are drawing the lines, indicating that they have a racial design. You would almost have to have them literally say, we did this based on race, because of the presumption that the Supreme Court gives, and because you can't use circumstantial evidence, it seems, to prove otherwise. And who among the persons who will be drawing the lines is going to say, I did it with race in mind? They can have race in mind, draw the lines, but all they have to do is say, no, this is political. Well, Judge Brown indicated that what happened in Texas is political, yes, but it was also racial. It had racial designs when it was done. I believe that this is not something that we should take lightly because of the fact that it will not only impact congressional lines, it will impact lines at the city council level, lines at the state representative level, the state senate level, lines at the county commissioner's court level, lines at the school board level. This is going to have an impact across all political offices wherein persons are elected from various districts. And this is something that is going to change the face of politics in this country. It is prognosticated that as a result of what the Supreme Court is doing currently, the opinion that they issued yesterday, it is predicted that we will probably lose a minimum of 20 African Americans from the Congress, probably about 10 Latinos from the Congress. That's the prediction. Could be more, but we already know that they're going after other persons of color in other states aside from Texas. I am pleased with what Judge Brown and the court did here. I am very disappointed in what the Supreme Court has done, but I want people to know that in no way does this in any way cause me to conclude that the fight is over. The fight is not over. It is not. Harder yet may be the fight, but the fight is not over. It only fuels the fire in my belly, the fire within me, to continue to fight and to fight even harder. It means that we must now be very much attuned to elections. We've got to make sure that we vote. I'm not telling people who to vote for, but I think your vote is important in this participatory democracy. Your participation can make the difference. We have to vote. Voting has a greater importance as a result of the Supreme Court's decision issued yesterday. Finally, this before I take my questions. I'm honored to have served in Congress with John Lewis. He and I were colleagues and friends. We protested together. We were arrested together. He was a good friend. And I talked to him quite often about some of the things that are historic in the life of this country. And he explained to me that when they approached the Edmund Pettus Bridge, they knew that the constabulary persons there who were part of the law enforcement field, he knew that these persons would likely be very harmful to them. He knew it, but they marched on. They didn't turn back. They knew what their fate was. He said he thought he was going to die on that bridge. Friends, if John Lewis and persons could march right on into what they knew was going to be brutality and suffer brutality, surely the Al Greens of the world can stand and fight this injustice that's taking place now. We cannot allow what they suffered to somehow be eviscerated by virtue of a Supreme Court decision. We've got to fight on. Fight on means we've got to vote and we've got to peacefully protest. I condone all violence. No violence is something that we should tolerate in any way. We should not tolerate any violence. But I want you to know that this does not in any way deter me. I am not in any way concluding that we should be so saddened and dismayed that we would now surrender. Hardly the case. We're going to fight, and we're going to fight like we've never fought before to prevent this injustice from circumventing the process that was in place prior to this injustice being perpetrated. I believe that many of these seats that they think will go Republican are probably going to become seats that they will regret having drawn, because this may still lead to a great majority for Democrats in the Congress of the United States of America. I believe this is the case because the pendulum is swinging, and it's swinging away from the desires of President Trump to have his way when it comes to getting people elected. I see the pendulum swinging. I believe that what they have done with this petard, I believe they will be hoisted by their own petard, and they will find themselves regretting what they have done by and through the state of Texas with the aid and abetting of the Supreme Court as a result of the president making a demand for more seats so that they could maintain power in the House of Representatives. I welcome any questions. Yes, sir.
How concerned are you in light of the Supreme Court's decision yesterday about the future of what remains of the Voting Rights Act?
Well, I'm very much concerned about it as a result of what happened yesterday. But before yesterday, I was concerned because we have a case before the court now from Louisiana. And this case challenges Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which is really about all that's left to be challenged. If they succeed with this case and it is eliminated, for edification purposes, Section 2 deals with the notion that you cannot use race to draw your lines. You can't discriminate based on race when drafting lines, when districting and redistricting. If they succeed in overturning this this law that we've had by and through the Justice Department's implementation of Section 2, and the Justice Department did a good job for a long time. But the Justice Department is going to lose ground if the Supreme Court concludes that Section 2 is now no longer effective, unconstitutional. And if that's done, it will make it very difficult for us to prove that racial designs are being used. It will make it almost impossible to prove. But it doesn't mean that we won't try. We still have the 14th Amendment that applies to states in terms of their possibly gerrymandering with racial designs. We still have that, and we can still use that. It's just that proving it is going to be very difficult. So to abridge now my answer that I've given you with many, many words, let me just say it this way. If the Louisiana case is held to conclude that Section 2 is unconstitutional, that simply means that the difficulty in proving racial discrimination, which is really racism at work, it will make it very difficult to prove it. Not impossible, but exceedingly difficult. Nearly impossible to the extent that one might conclude that it will be impossible. But I say, as I rethink and think this, that it won't be impossible. It just will be very, very difficult.
Regarding your running for the 18th Congressional District, I know you've addressed this particularly when you registered. You are very likely going to be running against the winner of the runoff in the 18th Congressional District, which will take place only a few weeks before the start of early voting for the March primary. How do you address concerns from people who have lived in the previous 18th Congressional District that their voices will be heard?
Well, let's start with this. I encourage everyone who meets the constitutional requirement of being 25 years of age or older, and who, if you desire to run, I encourage you to run. I don't think anyone should be deterred from running because of the gerrymandering that has taken place. I encourage people to run. People who are drawn out of this new 18th Congressional District by virtue of being a part of the old 18th that will now go into other districts, some into the 29th, I would say to you that you will have representation in those districts. I wouldn't have drawn the lines the way they've done them. I have been fighting to maintain the 18th Congressional District since I've been in Congress, fighting in and out of court. I have passed out this document which indicates that in the lawsuit that's just before the Supreme Court, I am a plaintiff intervener. So I've been fighting this. I've been fighting this so that people can have an 18th Congressional District to run from. And I will continue to fight this fight. But it's true that the lines have been drawn. I would not have drawn them this way, but I assured them that if I'm representing them, they're going to get the best representation that can be given. That's my commitment to them. But I also have to make a similar commitment to the people in the 9th Congressional District because some of them have been cut out too. So it's not just the people in the 18th who will not have the same representation that they've had before, meaning in terms of a single person representing them, because there was a person representing the 18th and a person representing the 9th. The 9th Congressional District has the same fate. There are people from the 9th Congressional District who will not be included with the people that they have traditionally been associated with, and they too will have some concerns because they'll be into another district. So this is not fair. It is not right. It is not something I approve of, but it is something that I will continue to fight, not only from my perch as a member of Congress, but I've done it by testifying before the State House. I've done it by protesting in the streets. And I will continue to do everything within my power, including speak on the floor of the Congress about this and this kind of racial behavior that is being exhibited in these lines, but that emanates from the President of the United States of America. Again, the 18th Congressional District has been treated unfairly. I am going to fight to make sure that those who are in the 18th, who are now joined with the people from the 9th, that they get good representation. I will do this as it relates to your health care. You know that I'm the person who stood up and told the president he didn't have the right, he didn't have a mandate to cut Medicaid. I will do it as it relates to jobs and affordable housing, affordability in general as it relates to all walks of life. So I'm going to do these things. But the point that's to be made is what they've done is wrong. There's no way to say it's not wrong. You may say that it's legal, but this is one of those times when something that has been made legal is wrong. It is not right to do what has been done. The president is the person who initiated this. The president ought to be somehow sanctioned for what he has done. And the best sanction of all is to make sure that you cast your votes on election day and make your voice heard. Your voices have been muted in the sense that you don't have two representatives anymore. You will only have one for the 9th and the 18th as they have been combined. Only one when we've had two. And I have worked with Sylvester Turner, Sheila Jackson Lee. I've worked with Craig Washington. I've worked with Mickey Leland. I worked with Barbara Jordan, new Barbara Jordan. So all of these are people that I know. But the point is, and has to be made, that we don't have the same amount of representation. But I assure you that those who are in the 18th will have the same level of representation if I happen to be their congressperson. Now, let me address one other issue, unless you have another question. Okay, I want to address one other issue. It's important to note that as we go forward, we ought to, at some point, conclude that it's the president that has created this confusion. And I say to candidates running in any of these races in the state of Texas, let's not conclude that we have to destroy each other. It is the president that is putting all of this in motion. It is the president and the governor of the state of Texas. The president and the governor of the state of Texas. And you should remember, it was the governor who decided that he would not fill the seat that was vacated as a result of the demise of my friend Sylvester Turner. It was the governor who has prolonged all of this. And for those people who somehow want to blame Sylvester Turner, and you want to blame Sheila, Congresswoman Jackson Lee, you want to blame them for this long time lapse. There are some people who think that if they had just decided that they would resign, none of this would have taken place. Well, friends, no one knows for whom the bell will toll next. And don't assume that if you are a person who is in office, and maybe you are a person who was in better health than the two of them, but if something had happened to you and you suffered an untimely demise, the governor would have done the same thing. It's not because of their illness that he did it. The governor did it because he's grabbing for power. This is all about power, so it doesn't matter who was in those seats. If you were in those seats, at the time that they were there, or that seat, talking about the 18th Congressional District, the governor would have done the same thing. You could have been 25 years old and the bell tolled. The governor wasn't going to treat the timeline any differently. So don't blame them, is my point. Blame the governor. Blame the governor. He's the person who has perpetuated this, perpetrated and perpetuated. Blame the governor. Blame the president. Don't blame Jackson Lee and Sylvester Turner. They are not culprits in this unfortunate circumstance that we all have to deal with currently. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for being here. I assure you that I will make myself available if you have additional questions. Simply contact our office. I am a person who believes that we ought to speak to the press as often as we can. So if you have additional questions, don't hesitate to call me. Thanks a lot, everybody.